During World War II, Jews who were incarcerated in ghettos kept in contact by exchanging letters in various ways and at different times. This presentation explores some examples of such correspondence between the two ghettos, Vilna in Lithuania and Warsaw in Poland. One way of exchanging letters was by emissaries and liaisons, disguised Jews and cooperating non-Jews, many of whom were women who traveled from one place to the next under extreme danger at the risk of their lives and delivered oral messages and letters. An interesting case study, which I would like to focus on today, is a letter delivered by the Polish non-Jewish scout, Irina Adamowicz. Adamowicz was born in Warsaw in 1910 to a Catholic family. She was a member of the Polish Scouts leadership and a social worker by profession. During the 1930s, she became close to members of Jewish youth movements, especially Hashomer HaTzair. During World War II, she conducted many deliveries and missions in order to help her Jewish friends, visiting ghettos such as Warsaw, Vilna, Bialystok, Kovno, and Shavli, bringing messages and letters to underground members in those ghettos. Before sneaking into the ghettos, she used to put on her clothes a yellow badge or an armband to look like a ghetto inmate. Ruzhka Korchak, who was an underground member in the Vilna ghetto, tells, Irina, the oldest friend of our movement, who even in times of crisis kept loyal to us and always willing to help. From her, we found out about the extermination operation, which started in the general government and in the Reich, on the liquidation of the Lublin ghetto, and on actions in other cities. In addition to the information she passed on, her visits also encouraged the locked Jews, providing them some comfort. Her ghetto visits helped establish relationships and the network between undergrounds of different ghettos. Years later, in 1958, she came to Israel as a guest of honor of a kibbutz arzi and received from Yad Vashem the recognition of righteous among the nations for her actions to help the Jews. During that visit, Dov Levin and Tzvi Baron, survivors of the Kovno ghetto and the partisans and historians, interviewed her on her Holocaust experiences. Irina told them how she sewed inside her clothes the packs of letters to deliver between the ghettos. 8 times she visited the Vilna ghetto, meeting with FPO, the United Partisan Organization underground members. In Kovno, she met with members of the underground, telling them what was going on in other places and hearing from them what their situation was. So we can see that the information she delivered was not only written, but also oral. She also met with Elchanan Elkes, the head of the Jewish council in Kovno, with his deputy Leib Garfunkel and others. They learned from her about the inner life in the other ghettos, about the operation and the humiliation, and no less important, exchanged data on the resisting organizations which started to operate. I would like to tell you now about one unique mission conducted by Irina, who delivered a letter written by Yosef Glasman, a Beitar Youth Movement member, who was second in command in the headquarters of the FPO underground in the Vilna ghetto, to Dr. David Vedovinsky, a leader of the revisionist movement in Poland, who was incarcerated in the Warsaw ghetto. Glasman gave the letter written in Hebrew and dated fall-autumn 1942 to Adamovich and told her of its content and further explanations. He explained that should she fail to deliver the actual letter, she could deliver the message orally. She managed to give the letters to Yosef Kaplan, leader of the Warsaw Ghetto Underground, the Jewish fighting organization, GOB, who on September 3rd, 1942, was arrested by the Gestapo, imprisoned in the Paviak prison, and sentenced to death. The circumstances of his capture remain controversial until today. Kaplan did not have the chance to give the letter to Vedovinsky. It was towards the end of the Great Deportation in the Warsaw Ghetto when 300,000 Jews were being deported to Treblinka. So the letter never reached its destination. However, as stated, Glasman told Adamovich its content. She memorized it and years later wrote it down in Polish and testified about her mission. Her testimony is preserved in the Ghetto Fighters Archive. What did the letter say? In the letter, Glasman presents a series of ideas on how Beitar members should behave during the war. There were two main subjects that Glasman considered to be critical. One, the cohesion of the internal ranks within the revisionist movement. And two, appeal to other movements with a proposal for cooperation. First point, he calls for the revisionist movement members to become unified, join forces, and get stronger from within, calmly and decisively. At the phrase of Ze'ev Jabotinsky, kalt und fast. One must have self-criticism on the question, are they acting according to their ideology, the real one, the true one, fulfilling Trumpeldor's thought? Do they go all the way, meaning do they utilize everything possible in their activity? Is their activity characterized by the same determination and clarity of thought as the fire burning in their bones? Do they avoid splitting ranks and personal rivalry within the movement? After self-criticism, one must draw conclusions and reach unity of thought, human closeness, friendship, and mutual support, as if they were one family. The second point is about learning to compromise with the other movements, to cooperate and achieve mutual understanding for the benefit of the Jewish people as a whole. Your people must come towards other movements in the Zionist camp. The achievements and uniqueness that characterize you should be the property of the entire nation. Of course, this is not about any kind of surrender on the part of the revisionist camp, but on the contrary, the strengthening of its position within the people. He concludes, there is no need to wait until someone proposes some kind of agreement, but after they are strengthened from within, the initiative must be taken, and the first to approach the rest of the movement with a proposal for cooperation and mutual help. We all know that the undergrounds in the Warsaw Ghetto did not reach an agreement and operated separately. The GOB demanded that the revisionists would join its ranks as individuals and not as an organized group. The ZZW had already acquired arms and had trained members with military experience, prepared a bunker highly equipped with food, medicines, etc., and refused this demand. The result was separate battles in the uprising and exchange of blame over the years. One wonders, had Glassman's letter reached its destination in time, would history be different? On July 24th, 1943, Glassman left the Vilna ghetto to the Naroch forest in West Belarus and joined the partisans who were active there. He served as the partisan unit's commander, but on October 8, 1943, he was killed with a group of over 30 Jewish partisans by a German ambush near the town of Vidz. Vidovinsky was deported from the Warsaw Ghetto to forced labor camps before the uprising and survived, but lost his wife and his child. After the war, he immigrated to New York and worked as a psychiatrist. He never remarried. He gave a testimony in Adolf Eichmann's trial, wrote a memoir, and passed away from a heart attack during a Holocaust Day memorial ceremony in Tel Aviv in April 1970. Another interesting and moving case of letters exchange I would like to mention is the 4 letters written in Yiddish sent from Zelig Kalmanovich from the Vilna Ghetto to Itzhak Gitterman in the Warsaw Ghetto. The letters were transferred by emissaries of the Jewish underground in February-April 1942. They were preserved in the second part of the Oneg Shabbat archive, found in milk jars in the excavations in the ghetto site on December 1st, 1950. Kalmanovich was a scholar, intellectual, historian, and the prophet of the Vilna Ghetto, as he was called. Gitterman was the head of the American Jewish Joint Distribution Committee, JDC, in Poland, and a member of the Ghetto Underground, the Jewish Combat Organization. In the letters dated February, March, and April 1942, in the midst of the war, Kalmanovich tells of the situation in the Vilna Ghetto, about cultural activities, and also about his work in the YIVO, the Institute for Jewish Research under Nazi rule. The letters' main topic was the request for economic support from the JDC, but interestingly, between the lines, there are reports on the circumstances in the ghetto from Kalmanovich's point of view. On February 16, 1942, Kalmanovich wrote, "Thank God I can write a few lines to you. Whatever we have been through here until now, we will be able to tell each other when happy times come. The 2 of us are healthy, thank God, and we are expecting salvation and consolation. Rumors say that Jewish life prospers and blooms in your place, despite all the troubles. It will be a mitzvah to send us some support. Until now, we had managed somehow, But in time, our situation becomes more and more stressful. On February 19, 1942, Kalmanovich wrote, "You would not expect me to describe to you our Odyssey. Compared to it, Homer's Odyssey is just a sweet cake." On March 23rd, 1942, Kalmanovich wrote, "We must have faith and cling to the certainty that the miracle which had happened up until now would preserve and carry on." Me and Herman Kruk wrote about our house in the green garden on the town edge. He refers to the Yiva building and collection of the Jewish books. "Now I am lucky to be there every day." He worked there as part of the Einsatzstab Rosenberg, ERR, the Nazi special task force charged with the looting of Jewish cultural treasures. Something is still left of the material. It is hard to estimate how much. It seems like half or third, maybe more. We are trying to be okay with the masters, the Germans, and follow their orders. And what is about to happen from now on, we must lean on God's mercy. On April 21st, he was more specific and gave examples of the activity in the Vilna ghetto. I will try to write in length this time and give you some information concerning our lives, a token of constructive happy news, not only due to the shining sun and the smell of spring. On the contrary, maybe prisoners suffer more now than in the winter. But one of us who is acting and lives under the illusion that his actions are meaningful, he refers to himself, can be satisfied today and even thank God for the miracle that happened. And now one can relax and sit down to write a letter to a good friend. He continues, "It feels like the soul strengthened a little. The descendants of our patriarch Jacob have proven time and again their enormous superhuman power to adjust and create. The workshops are doing miracles in the ghetto. There is a technology class for 25 youngsters. 100 were left out. About 40 teachers are engaged with pupils in Yiddish and Hebrew. There are a choir, an orchestra, and concerts every week. The Shabbat evenings of the Writers Association are attended by many. The Hebrew Association also attracts a crowd of 100, mainly youth. No need to say that people are reading a lot. Passover seders were held. Statistics are made, archive materials are collected, a museum is about to be established, people are exercising." He concludes the letter by saying, "If only we would get together soon on happy occasions. Be strong and of good courage, yours, Kalman." These letters express a rare optimism and faith of a man who opposed the underground in the ghetto and spoke against any active resistance. In fact, Kalmanovich represents the majority of the Jews who clung to any possible way of survival. He believed that keeping the culture, religion, intellectual work, and obedience to the Germans would prove right at the end. Unfortunately, this was not the case. The two of them, Gitterman and Kalmanovich, did not survive the war. Gitterman was murdered in front of his apartment in the Warsaw Ghetto on January 18, 1943, during the small uprising. A makeshift tombstone was placed on his grave, on which was written, "Died a tragic death," next to the date of his murder. Kalmanovich was deported to Estonia in early September 1943, just a short while before the final liquidation of the Vilna ghetto on September 23rd. The 62-year-old was incarcerated in the Narva forced labor camp under harsh and cruel conditions. Kalmanovich was forced to do physical work and became ill and frail. Despite that, he found the energy to organize and participate in literary events, give lectures, and encourage his friends in the men's barracks. Kalmanovich died of hunger and disease in the camp. To sum up, even under the severe conditions and German efforts to cut the incarcerated Jews in ghettos and camps from each other, people found ways to communicate. Oral messages and letters were exchanged during the war between individuals and groups. Private and official letters were delivered through innovative methods. The common way was by emissaries, mainly or many of them women who took risks and traveled from one place to another, but as we had seen, not always successfully. They were sometimes aware of the content of the letters so as to deliver the messages orally in case of need. From the few letters which survived, we can learn directly of the living conditions in the ghettos, of the needs and hopes, the atmosphere and mood, and of the material need as well. These ego documents are a rare primary source to get to know life in the ghettos and other closed places in real time by real people. I am certain that various archives contain many more such letters that should be exposed and studied that may provide new angles to Holocaust research. Thank you.